This week, I had the distinct pleasure of interviewing Erin Martin. She is the Vice President of Marketing for Netsertive. She works with some of the biggest companies out there, great giant brands, franchise brands. But what was really cool is I've been on her podcast a couple times. And so we were able to flip the script, so to speak, and I interview her. But what you're going to find out today is she brings a real, authentic, genuine approach to marketing that really is centered around the customer. And there's just some nuggets of wisdom in here that only Erin can offer. I know you're going to enjoy this. I certainly did. On this episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Erin Martin. Not only does she share my same last name, but she's an amazing woman. You're going to enjoy this. Erin is the Vice President of Marketing at Netsertive, which is an industry-leading digital marketing firm that works with some of the largest companies in the game. She's an expert at digital marketing and the host of the Multi-Location Marketing Leader podcast. That's a mouthful. And I've been fortunate to be on that podcast twice. So I love that I'm able to turn the tables here and interview Erin. She's also a self-described adventurer. And on top of that, just an awesome person. So let's get started. Erin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Roger. I'm so excited, even though I am on the other side. I'm excited to chat today.
Fair play, right? Fair play.
Yes.
For the listeners' benefit, because I know you pretty well from just working with you, but for the listeners' benefit, can you, Erin, give just a little bit about your background? But I think what's most important and also just special to hear is how you started in business and then, evolved your way into this role, which is highly specialized. So if you can take us on that journey, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, I'd love to. And, starting at the beginning, I think I got my degree in marketing, so didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was like, I'll just get a business degree. And from there, like today, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Like I tell my team that all the time.
Yep.
And so when I graduated, I actually got into product marketing, worked for some startups. And then over time, I think honestly, how I got here was just sticking around when other people peeled off and doors opened for opportunities.
Such is the game of life.
Yeah. So like early in my career, being a product marketer is one slice of the pie. And it was like, okay, well, we need to do this on the marketing team. Like, grab it. We need to do this. Let's learn it and grab it. And all of a sudden, 10 years later, when you can stick around when other people peel out and jump into things, you've all of a sudden learned all these different facets of marketing. And you're a true marketing generalist. I kind of call myself a marketing generalist in that where my career has been it's always been on the B2B side. So that's a heads up for people. Netsertive, the company I work for, we do a lot of digital marketing for B2C companies, so have experience there. But it is interesting how different those two are, despite using same foundational strategies and concepts. So you'll probably hear that throughout our conversation.
Yeah. Let's make sure we revisit that in a second. Yeah.
So basically, just throughout my career, especially in a startup type lifestyle, I think it's not always a stable environment. Some people can get scared if their jobs are going to stick around. You don't know about tomorrow. People peel off for greener pastures. And so over time, if you're just still the last one standing, doing everything and eating it up, all of a sudden you find yourself a VP of marketing one day because you've gathered all the skills that you need. You've been there, you've done that. And I think that's really how I got here. I think the other caveat I'd say is absolutely people. I think everyone kind of knows that people are so critical in helping you get where you want to be, and having that network, whether it's just in life or personally, professionally, being surrounded by strong relationships. And I think I was lucky enough that early in my career, there is some strong leaders who showed me the importance of people. And not just, the relationship aspect, but also that's truly going to impact your success in everything. So, if you're running a marketing team, nothing will work if you don't have the right team. If you're trying to grow a company, nothing will work at that company unless you have the right personalities that can work together on the leadership team. If you have the different departments working well together. Just everything comes back to people for me. and especially on the customer side as well.
I always know for myself, there are those epiphanies. There are those critical exchanges with another mentor, boss, colleague that a light bulb goes off. And I could kind of see you light up when you were talking about some of these previous bosses or leaders, whomever, that helped you understand the importance of a team of people. What were some of those conversations? Do you remember some of the, the little nuggets that were shared that really made that light bulb go off?
I don't even know if it was a light bulb for me in terms of the relationship side. I think it
Hmm.
was literally within the past 3 years. So, 20 years later in my career, where
Yeah.
I can think back to 15 years ago. And I'm like, I see that trend in what this leader was doing in terms of their behavior. And like now I can correlate it where I couldn't before into specific action. So I don't even know if it was like a light bulb moment for me. I think there is some rough moments that are some stories I could share that also are those like epiphanies now where I might not have known it in the moment. So, like, for example, another relationship piece comes to the customer.
Yeah.
Like, I think the other piece that has gotten me to where I am is learning and realizing the importance of knowing the customer so well and like knowing them so well that you have personal relationships with them. I think oftentimes, especially when you're younger in your career, you're like, oh, I know who our customer is. We've got personas. It's Jane and she likes this. And it's like, okay, like having a persona, A, like, is that accurate? But B, like, it doesn't really, like, do you actually know their emotional and logical state to be able to market to them? And so there's a few stories that I'm thinking specifically of. And I remember one is when I was I think of my first role in VP of marketing. I had an amazing sales team. They knew the customer so well. So they were able to iterate quickly on how to market to them, how to sell to them, kind of do everything in one, which you would think is awesome to be able to know the customer so well. But then because of that, it almost pushed the marketing and our product teams out from having a close relationship
Hmm.
with customers because they just manhandled and kind of took it all.
Yeah.
So it was like I was never going to be successful as a marketing leader, like for the marketing team or myself, if we didn't get direct access to the customer and be able to talk with them. And that happens so often with product teams as well, especially in B2B. Like you have to be able to be developing offerings that's based off of direct feedback. So I think that early in my career, it's very, you're often like, okay, here's our persona, here's the topic I'm writing about, try to mash them together. And then all of a sudden you're spending 5 hours trying to write a case study or like 10 hours trying to write this blog post perfectly. And it's like, what's the problem? Why is like, I hate writing. Like, I'm a bad writer. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
you're not a bad writer. You just need to know the customer better and be able to write to them. So I think there's a difference between having just a persona and kind of understanding the general audience of who you're marketing to and then truly knowing the customer well, which is all people based. Again, no matter what you're marketing or selling, it's to a person who has emotions. So there's more to it than like just what you're going to see on a website that's a stats about your product or service.
Yeah. And so a great segue into, because you said earlier you mainly focus on business to business, but you also do have worked in business to consumer. And those are different. I found them to be different from the way you approach the customer. But wow, you just said a mouthful when you said they're still buying on emotion. It's a human being. And maybe that emotion is to save their job or protect their status at work, whatever, even if it's B2B. But can you talk about the two different approaches that you have learned in B2B versus B2C?
Yeah. I think the general approach of like both need digital marketing, you need to know your customer incredibly well on both. But then when you get into the tactics, that's where the different channels and content varies.
Hmm.
And I know we might get into a ton of digital marketing topics
Sure.
and content related things too. But specifically content wise, in the B2B marketing world, there's a lot of education that's needed, longer sales cycles, usually, it's a larger type of purchase, usually And so for us, it's like, looking at digital advertising specifically, like, yeah, there's some people researching, maybe what you have to buy, but there's less high intent to be captured, less demand to be captured purely with digital advertising. So like for us, I wholeheartedly believe and love digital advertising, but we don't have, a ton of our budget being spent on that because that's not where our customers live.
Yep.
It's more relationship based. We try to develop a ton of educational content, be influencers in the space, help make our customers smarter as it relates to digital marketing. Where on that B2C side, there's a ton of other variables at play where, like everyone lives online. Like if your computer isn't open, your phone is open in your hand. So like, hell yes, you have to be in the search results. And then the type of content that you create is usually going to be, a little shorter, more educational, like maybe less time to be able to spend and interact with content. So you have to get captured quickly. So there's a lot of different variables when it comes to the tactics, which at the end of the day, again, comes back to just the way a consumer or your customer wants to be marketed to.
Yeah. The ThriveMore podcast audience is a lot of business owners, but also a lot of people that are about to make that leap into entrepreneurship, which we know is scary, right? The reason I wanted you on this podcast so much is that you are an expert at digital marketing, and digital marketing has this almost this shroud around it, and it can feel intimidating and scary to people that are new to entrepreneurship, and they just don't understand it. Can you just speak to really what is at the essence and how digital marketing is different? And I would argue more, I think you would too, way more effective than a billboard or, a TV spot. There's kind of a shotgun approach. But if you could, I guess what I'm trying to ask, can you demystify digital marketing a little bit for the audience?
Yeah. I'll try. We'll see how this goes. I mean, because on one side, my brain goes in so many different directions. It's like on one hand, I'd call it like, you're just having a conversation with someone that's representing your brand, and you're trying to, like all brand marketing, try to convince them, or not convince them, but have a different differentiated stance in their mind from all the other options they have out there. And you're communicating that via just a digital channel. So I try to think about it in terms of, if you're having a conversation with your best friend at a bar and you wanted to talk to them on an emotional and then logical basis about your product or service, like how does that come out? And then just digitize it. That's like the oversimplified view, I think. And then making sure that you have both of those pieces, because as we know, people are emotional and then they back it up with facts. So that's why those two play well together. You need to have, the emotional side where video plays so well, you can capture yourself talking about why you love this product or service. And, usually people who own a business do it because they love and believe in the product. So it's really easy for you to be able to get up there and have that type of emotion and passion come through on how it's helped improve your life and others. And then on the flip side, you can come up with the logical points. That's the reinforcements of, why can you justify this feeling that you're having? So that's on I think the basic side.
I love that you said it's a conversation. Like you're really, I love that. That does demystify it, because you still have to have an authentic conversation with the audience to whom you're addressing. But if you, I interrupt you, I apologize. If you can go a little bit deeper into kind of the nuances, because, any 17-year-old kid living in his mom's basement with a Mac, I'm a digital marketer, right? So kind of what's behind the curtain when you're really doing it well.
Yes. And this is where I have to say, early in my career, definitely learned some hard lessons. I mean, you think you can go into, Google Ads and run some stuff. I have wasted lots of ad spend before. Like, if you don't know what you're doing, you can truly, truly waste a ton of money like that. Like a settings off to, and your monthly budget or daily budget isn't set correct. And you're like, oh, I just spent this much, like trying to test this out. So there is a level, I think, of sophistication and skills that are needed when you get into specific channels, specifically digital advertising. I think that's the number one digital marketing channel that people continue to outsource to partners because they just need extra help.
Yep.
And the skill there. So I would say my recommendation for any future business owner too is always control the brand and your strategy, and then that can get disseminated into execution partners, and you can bounce ideas off of them in terms of the right strategy and those type of things, but never outsource your strategy, never outsource your brand.
Yep. Yeah. What would you, is there a common theme among the clients that you have who are successful versus and I'm specifically, I mean, in their digital approaches and in their customer acquisition process. So really their customer acquisition. Is there a common theme you find for the ones that crush it every time versus the ones that struggle?
Yeah, good question. I think I'll break it down because how my brain thinks about it is the funnel to the customer acquisition piece. And so the two biggest pieces where I see people making or breaking it is in the getting serious about the investment level needed to capture that mind share, capture the perception of your brand in someone's mind and differentiate it from someone, like getting serious about getting the reach you need to move the needle, investing the amount of money you need to move the needle. And then once you can acquire those leads and traffic, ensuring that you have a really buttoned up process to closing them. So whether it's, like adding content in to nurture them or retarget them, or making sure that your call centers are being handled correctly, or your internal team is handling leads correctly. That's the other piece where we see people fall down, which again is wasting just tons of money when you're sending leads to the leaky bucket. And it's so easy to oversee, an issue that's happening and catch it a month later, and then all of a sudden be $2,000 poor. Because you've lost those leads because you didn't call them back because your voicemail was too full. Like there's just simple things like that in that, lead capturing process that I see where it's like, oh man, like the simple things.
Yeah. I would argue that business is simple. It's just not easy, right? Like business is really pretty. What you just said is generate the lead, and one, I love the word, you invest in marketing. You don't spend in marketing, you invest in marketing because you should then be able to profitably acquire a customer. But it's just acquire a lead, nurture that lead and sell that lead. And then of course service them from there on out. But boy, there are a lot of companies and a lot of entrepreneurs I see where that process breaks down and they're leaving. It's not just the $2,000 that you wasted in advertising. It's the opportunity cost of losing the 20 or 25,000, whatever, 100,000 that you would have made off of those leads. So so when you see that happen, you're a consultant in essence to your, as a vendor partner, to your clients. How do you broach those conversations?
Usually with data, so that we take the, calling something out as a negative versus, surfacing data and asking like, what are you guys seeing from your end? This is what we're seeing, but we don't want to interpret this incorrectly, I think is usually like the starting point to have a healthy conversation. And that also brings two groups together. I mean, anytime that you have vendor partners helping in specific arenas, like you can't always know what's in the mind of the marketing team. So like you've got to be seeing what's happening on their end too that could be informing some of the data. So usually that's where data really comes into play to be able to support like being able to scratch deeper. And I think that's another good kind of difference, but similarity between B2B and B2C is on the B2B side. It's so good to just do pipeline analysis all the time. Like where are you stuck? Where's our funnel stuck? Where are we not converting? Where can we unstick? And then on the B2C side, like how is the customer experience going? Where are they stuck? Like if you do a secret shopping mission, like what's horribly wrong? So there's two similar concepts done in different ways for those approaches.
Yeah. If if we go back to your your journey, because you compressed a very successful career into just a couple of minutes. If you can rewind, because I think the best lessons and the value that comes from a lot of these podcasts are the pain truly that the guest has experienced in his or her journey. Because if we can learn from that pain as a listener and not repeat that same mistake, we've actually applied the value from listening to this podcast. So if you rewind back into your career, are there one, and I don't want to, I don't want you to share anything that's super uncomfortable, but is there any one or two things that you can, or stories that you can recall where, man, I went left when I should have gone right, and audience who is listening, don't go left. Don't go left here. Can you share any of that?
Yes, I would love to. And I think it relates back to what I was talking about of knowing the customer, in that, younger in my career, I was always on a marketing team. I also, circle way back to when I was at that startup phase younger in my career, I moved around from learning everything related to marketing on the marketing crew. I moved into customer success at one point, ended up in operations, and then circled back to marketing. So I think that also experience was super helpful to understand how a healthy business works from all angles. So you can truly understand, like, okay, like it's fine to know a sticking point within marketing that's a bigger wheel in the company's cog, but you truly need to know, like, what's the company's biggest sticking point when you get to the leadership level. So
Sure,
I think
sure.
that was helpful to just be able to wear different hats outside of the marketing org to better understand. And then to circle back on, a painful point, I think the most, like if I had to recap my career and the painful
Sure.
points, it was all related to my own confidence
Mm,
in my ability to be a marketer. Oftentimes on the marketing crew, I was always working alongside, either working for, CROs or sales leaders, and then later on working alongside VPs of sales that were always older men. And so they were great. I am so fortunate to be able to work alongside Q Kim, Ron Signarowitz, for a few shout outs. But sometimes, especially when you're younger and you don't have the confidence quite yet, it's intimidating. Because I mean, if you're with anyone who like knows the industry really well, is great at what they do, like it gets really intimidating.
yeah.
And so I think the people aspect of that also comes into play, in that like you have to know yourself so well and have some great self-awareness to be able to identify where you're getting stuck. And if I could have identified earlier, I have a lack of confidence here and it's prohibiting me to getting to some place, then I probably could have unstuck it sooner. And so the
Yeah.
specific story I'm thinking about was when I was a marketing leader alongside another sales leader. I was intimidated, was trying to meet these metrics and drive what the rest of the leadership team was looking for, swimming really hard to do that, but not really exerting my own voice or opinion on things. And thinking back, where I fell down was I didn't earn the risk. I didn't earn the opportunity to be able to voice with confidence my POV on things. Like I was like, oh, other people aren't listening to my POV. Like I'm trying to do this, but they're going this way. And all of a sudden you've got two orgs, going different directions. And thinking back on it, it's like I needed to get confidence, not have confidence.
Hmm.
And get confidence, I think you can get confidence by truly mastering your subject, or at least knowing the customer. Like
Yeah.
literally all else. If you don't know what you're doing, but you know the customer, I swear you can make anything happen.
Yeah.
And so that's why I just press on the knowing the customer so much, because once that really unlocked for me, like, build a relationship with an actual person who I would sell to. Like that's the level of understanding I needed to have the confidence to know what the right step would be, as opposed to trying to, succeed just for my internal leadership team, or like help the company or do this or do that right. It's like, no, I will help the company if I have the confidence and drive, help drive leads and revenue. which can only happen if you get the confidence, not just fake it till you make it, if that makes sense.
Are we talking a little bit about imposter syndrome here?
Yes, and that too.
Yeah.
But like imposter syndrome, like you are sometimes an imposter. I don't know. I get the idea of imposter syndrome, and I think everyone kind of feels it. But at some point, you also have to actually understand you don't know like what you should. Like that's fine. It's fine. But like acknowledge it and get there. Like get the confidence by getting there. Listen, if you don't know a subject and you can't explain it succinctly, you don't know it well enough. Like throw on YouTube when you get ready and binge on like just topics about what you need to learn and have it playing while you're, you know, shaving or doing your hair. Like just immerse yourself in it, just like you want to be, you know, in a room with smarter people than you. Surround yourself with content to be able to get yourself there. So there's always like, yes, you're never going to know everything. You're always in a learning stage. But I think also having the self-awareness to know and be able to share with your coworkers your gaps in knowledge is sometimes where people fall down. I know I fell down there by not being able to say like, I know this really well. I don't know that. Like, how can I improve? Or like, how can we work on this as a team as opposed to just trying to, you know, always be successful, hide what you don't know, fake it, all of that. Like, that's not going to get you anywhere.
Nope. No, that's what you just said is incredibly insightful because it takes more. Confidence isn't knowing it all. It takes confidence, at least to start the journey, to say, I don't know. I need help here, right? I need your help. And I think so many leaders are afraid to ask for help, especially if they're looking down to their team, you know, instead of up to their supervisor, down to and say, I need your help. I don't understand this.
Yeah.
That takes more confidence than, you know, walking in a braggadocio way and acting like you've got it all figured out.
Yeah. And that's where the people piece and relationships come into play so much as well. I mean, like, I love doing disc profiles. We have everyone on our marketing team doing multiple types of profiles to understand, like, you know, with our team dynamics, can you play with the other personalities well that we have on the team? So it's like, we don't need 5 Dennis Rodmans.
No, nope.
We need the mix. We need like all the different players that have different things they're bringing to the table. So I think the way that personalities play and the way they play at the leadership team level is so impactful to a company's success because that just trickles down.
Yep. You and I both are involved in the franchising space because I know Netsertive helps a lot of national franchisors. And I feel very fortunate because in one of my businesses, Beamlight Sauna, my co-founder is Cynthia Wagner, you know, a very empowered woman, you know, a lot of confidence. And again, she got there. She was a woman who got pregnant at 16 and, you know, the world was conspiring against her, so to speak. And she just worked her way into success. But I kind of want to go there right now with you because franchising, let's just be honest, it's mostly old white guys. Says the old white guy, you know, with the gray hair, right? So, and I don't think that's healthy, and I don't think that's the best, you know, diversity that we could be offering, and especially new young entrepreneurs that are coming to the space. So, how has that been challenging for you, and or how have you adapted your approach, knowing that? And thank God, a lot of people are aging out of this industry, and it's becoming more diverse. But it is filled with a lot of old white guys. So how has that been a unique challenge for you in this industry?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I appreciate you just saying that. I think those are the type of steps of just, you know, being open and honest and being able to have conversations about hard things is the best step that any of us can do with any hard topic. Like, let's just have healthy conversations about it.
Yeah.
Thinking about my own personal experiences, I have heard some horror stories in terms of just, you know, industry things that have happened. I personally have not had any of those type of stories. So when anything comes about, I just like to use them as coaching opportunities for my team or others to be able to learn and be better. So I do think it's important that, especially if you're a leader, it's hard to surface all the hard things.
Yeah.
I mean, just not even this specific topic, but anything under the sun. You can't bring everything to your team, but you can be an example of how to handle it moving forward if something happens to you, and give them the tools so that someone isn't shocked if they experience something and know how to handle it moving forward. So
Yeah.
I do think that, to your point of just diversity, joining the space is huge. I think the more that just everyone has a conversation and sees how we can improve is great. And, like you being an older white guy bringing the topic up is awesome.
Sure. Oh, thank you. If we can get I don't want to say technical, but just a little more granular. And you and I have actually talked a little bit this in the past of, OpenAI, ChatGPT, and just all of the tools that are coming at just a crazy pace every day, a new app, a new application, a new plugin is coming. And, there's so many marketers that are singing Chicken Little and, I'm going to lose my job. And this is going to replace me as a copywriter. And you and I have talked, and I don't see that happening. But can you speak to how you've actually used chat? Like if somebody were listening and saying, gosh, I want to do this, or I am doing this, or I need help doing this, what tools should I use to make my journey faster, better, more profitable? How are you using the, AI?
Yeah, I love it. I think the first thing to think about is what's already working.
Yeah.
Like start there. And then how could you apply AI to, produce that quicker, do it more efficiently, or increase your reach? Like basically how can you expand upon the existing success you have? So for us, podcasting was one. Where we used to use a podcast production company and we took it in-house. And AI, we have Jasper as a subscription basis right now, has helped us. And so we basically have a workflow where we could take, the $3,000 we used to pay to a production company. Now we just have a marketer on our team who can produce it in 2 hours or less with Descript, as a video platform that can turn the whole episode into a transcript. And then we'll take the transcript and put it through Jasper to give us the summary and the key highlights. We'll scan it. Obviously, everything is manually checked and updated so that it's, authentic and true. And then we can publish it. So that's one specific piece where we've had some huge cost savings for content development, more control, tons of video assets that we can use at our disposal. So I think automating any repetitive task or administrative task is like a layup to be able to use these things for. I think there's also another example that comes to mind, and this could be even ChatGPT without subscriptions for marketing teams, is we use our marketing automation system is Marketo. So whether it's, a marketing automation system or Salesforce, there's always usually hefty, expensive consultants who come along with the administration of said expensive platform.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you want to buy a rocket ship? Well, now you need someone to drive the rocket ship because you can't. Great. So we've been trying to see how we can get more efficient in our marketing and take more of that in-house, being a small team. And so we're ramping one of our marketing team members to learn more about the system. And the online documentation for Marketo is there, but truly, if you ask a specific question in ChatGPT, you'll get a very specific, usually accurate response on how to do it. Like all of a sudden, you don't need a true marketing administrator to pay a ton of money to. So there's some of those internal tools and training things where you could get someone ramped more quickly, because it will do that whole, trying to Google the answer and find it, which everyone does. Like that's the first thing you sometimes even tell your marketing team to do. Like you want someone who's active trying to find the answer themselves. And so people go to Google and try to figure it out. And it's like, well, you don't need to go to Google anymore. You can go to ChatGPT and it'll search everything for you and give you the recommendation. optimization. So that's another one that we've been using. Even those two examples, you can see direct time savings and direct cost savings, which means that we can invest more into the things that truly matter, like content development or attending in-person events, since that's really big for B2B and still hugely expensive. So those are a few of examples.
Cool,
and then,
cool.
I mean, obviously content writing. I use it all the time when I'm trying to get unstuck.
Yeah, exactly.
I used to tell myself all the time that I was not a good writer. Like, just, it was the exact example of like banging your head against the wall and trying to write a case study for 10 hours. Like, that was me. Like, I wanted to succeed so much. I wanted to write this awesome case study as like, you know, the 23-year-old Erin. But it was just such a struggle fest. And so it was like, well, now if you can know the customer, plug some basic concepts and like ideas that are accurate on your customer into a tool like Jasper, it'll at least get you going in the right direction. It writes the ugly first draft, as Ann Handley calls it, which is the hardest part sometimes to get down.
Yeah, just get out of first gear. Just get me out of first gear. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Just a couple more questions for you. I know we're on a limited time here. So one, really last marketing question, and then I just want to understand what a self-described adventurer is. So, which is in your LinkedIn post or your LinkedIn description. But what is your formula for kind of that Gary V jab, 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 right hook? You know, where that, because I know you are so good and skilled in content marketing so that you're pulling customers versus, you know, pushing. And I think all marketers, they struggle, companies struggle with how much to give until you make that ask. What's worked best for you?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely something to building an audience before monetizing it, as you see so often. I mean, like they give, it happens all the time. So I think that concept of being able to give before you can make the ask is important to build trust and credibility. And it comes out as an authentic ask once you do have that relationship established. I mean, it truly is, especially on the B2B side, it truly is the difference between a cold spam email, like how's that going to perform? Or if I ping someone that I've had, you know, multiple in-person interactions with, they know my kids, I know theirs, and I ping them and I'm like, hey, are you reevaluating some marketing partners right now? Like, what's the difference in those two success metrics? And the only way that we've gotten to number two is by showing up and being supportive of the community that we're a part of. So I think it goes back to that original, like knowing your customer, knowing who you want to be in the mind of your customer and how that's different from competitors. So for Netsertive, we try to show up and help marketers become the best versions of themselves. That is truly our mission. Yeah. And so everything we do comes with that first, and how can we achieve that? And then following is like, yes, truly, if you have a need, we can partner. Like that's the beauty of if you have the right offering in the right space as well. At that point, it's just needs analysis and why you're the best for that problem or issue that they're having, and being able to have a two-way dialogue. You're not selling to someone. You're not pushing your message down their throat. You're truly having a marketing engineering conversation to get them to a better place.
Yeah, what I just heard in between the lines is you've added value and you've then asked or you've earned the permission to ask. You've earned the permission to ask. Yeah. 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 Super cool. Super cool. And that's, you know, that's the lesson for me and the listeners is, you know, in today's world, it's like, you know, I want an instant result. And great marketing, you need a little runway. You got to build a little runway there. And of course, as you know, famous saying, the longer the runway, the bigger the ask. So, you know, start laying that foundation. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing I'd throw in real quick on that one too is, especially for small business owners who don't have time to be doing marketing or, you know, need a partner to do it, any type of content that you have validated is what your customer needs. Like we're already doing that piece.
Yep.
Ensure that anything you develop can punch 5 times. So like, for example, on the B2B side, we do webinars. And so if we have a half-hour webinar, that's going to become 5 different pieces of content. So it's going to become a blog post. It's going to become a few short video snippets of like the best highlight reels of the webinar that we post on social. It could be a best practices tips PDF. That's kind of the cliff notes of the webinar. Like everything you do should be disseminated into the strategy and the channels that you have so that you can make it work for you and not just be developing a ton of content that then goes stale and you put all this effort into. So I think that's kind of the magic dynamic of content for me, is if you're nailing how you're helping a customer, you can do one thing and then just cascade that everywhere.
Yep. Yep. And as we spoke earlier, there are AI tools and plugins that you can use to help you chop that up and captions and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I have to ask, because you put it in your LinkedIn profile, so it's worthy of asking. A self-described adventurer. How do you find adventure? What is your idea of adventure?
I know. And now I need to maybe reevaluate my LinkedIn profile if I'm calling myself out as an adventurer so much. I mean, it's truly because I love the outdoors and moving my body.
Yeah.
I am a true believer in health and fitness and its ability to just feed your soul, give you energy to show up. Like everything for me hinges on my mental, physical, and emotional state. And this might sound kind of weird, but truly, I know one of my biggest challenges in the future is if I had like a catastrophic event where I couldn't work out, and like mentally being able to get to a healthy place. Because that's how much I just love it as a mental outlet, and recognize that I show up as a better leader, as a better mother, as a better wife, everything, friend, everything, if I have the energy for it, which is fueled by moving my body for me. So from the adventure perspective, like love everything mountain biking, trail running, hiking, snowboarding, skiing, anything that can get us outdoors, I love. And then when outdoors can't happen because I have small kids, like you'll definitely find me on a spin bike, doing hot yoga. I work out daily. So it fuels my soul on those days that you're not quite sure if you have the emotion to show up with a happy face and throw in a workout and it's like everything's all good.
I wish I didn't work out today, said no one ever. Right?
Yeah.
Said no one ever. It's it
absolutely. If you can get through the first 15 minutes, like I swear, 5 or 15 minutes is all you need to just get to the other side and just feel better just for moving. You don't have to push yourself like incredibly hard. Just move your body. Go for a walk. Do something enjoyable. Find what you like. Don't just follow the trends. Figure out what's right for you. But it's huge.
Strong body, strong mind, for sure.
Yep.
For sure. And that's what we're with our brands. That's what we're on a quest to do, is get people off the couch, away from Netflix, and into their own health and wellness. All right. So one last question. I ask this to everybody. I'm an avid reader. I just love devouring business books and biographies and all sorts of self-help reading. What's been a recent book, or even your favorite book that really had an impact on you, and that you put to work, that you actually, it's one thing to read a book, it's another to read the book, take the lessons and apply them. Is there one that you can recommend to the audience?
Ooh, I've been binging on fiction recently, so I'm trying to think of like the latest business one that I absolutely loved, or even back in the day that I read. Oh, one is not coming to mind, but I do think this isn't going to answer your question exactly, so I'll have to like get back to you on it. But there's a lot of marketing books that try to give like the playbooks and the tactics and all of those. And I think that was hugely instrumental in my career in just getting ideas of how those type of formulas worked and how to test. So it's easier than ever these days to swipe a good,
Yeah.
framework and run with it and then tweak it and make it your own based off of, again, the customer. So I can't think of a specific one because there's been so many I've read about marketing framebooks, but I think binging on those has been super helpful. But then also knowing that just because that's what's written about, just because this is a popular framework to follow, like don't fall into the just running a playbook. Like, again, you have to know exactly what's right for you. And that's going to be breaking the mold sometimes.
Yep. And what's really right for your customer too. Like, you said so many times. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, Erin, thank you so much. This was fun because I've been on the other side with you twice. So it's kind of fun to have you be the interviewee. And I think you shared a lot of insight and a lot of expertise on not only digital marketing, but just as you spoke about leadership and self-confidence. And I think self-confidence is something we all struggle with at times. And it's actually doing it and just jumping in the deep end of the pool is how you build it. And that's what I heard from you. And that's a great lesson for all the listeners.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on. And I absolutely love your guys' mission and everything that you're all about at ThriveMore. So now I just need to get myself to a Rockbox Fitness. Once you guys have a Denver location.
It's coming. It's coming. So hang tight and I'll hook you up. Thank you so much for tuning into the ThriveMore podcast. Don't forget to take a look at the show notes for any resources mentioned during the show. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you have access to the latest and the greatest. I'd also like to remind you to check out our website, thrivemoorebrands.com. There you'll find information on the brands we support and information on franchising. Thank you again for tuning in, and until next time, always remember to set your intentions for the day and strive to thrive.